A simple request for breakfast turned into a deeply unsettling experience for a Brazilian tourist visiting Italy after she discovered a shocking message on her restaurant receipt. Maria Clara was dining with family at Victor Lab in Riccione, in Italy's Emilia-Romagna region, on August 19, when the incident allegedly unfolded. She had ordered scrambled eggs along with juice and coffee, but said the eggs were much softer and runnier than she wanted. According to Clara, she politely asked the waiter whether the eggs could be cooked a little longer. Instead of receiving the response she expected, she claims the waiter reacted dismissively, telling her that the restaurant did not serve raw eggs. Clara decided not to make an issue of it. The eggs eventually arrived very soft, she said, and she chose not to send them back because she did not want to create an argument during what was supposed to be a pleasant meal. But the situation took a dramatic turn when she looked at the receipt. On the bill was a message apparently intended for restaurant staff. The note allegedly contained an insult directed at the customer, before instructing the kitchen to burn the eggs and spit in them. For Clara and her family, what might initially have looked like an offensive joke suddenly raised a much more serious question. Had anyone actually tampered with her food? There is currently no evidence that anyone actually spat in Clara's eggs. The disturbing message itself is the central allegation, and the restaurant has described the employee's behavior as inappropriate rather than confirming that food was contaminated. A breakfast request turns into a nightmare. Clara's account makes the incident particularly uncomfortable because she says she had not been aggressive or abusive toward the restaurant staff. "I was polite. I simply asked if it was possible to have the eggs a little more cooked," she told Italian media, according to reports. She also claimed that the meal arrived with a salad she had specifically asked not to have. Rather than complain further, Clara said she simply let the matter go. That decision changed when she noticed the message on the receipt. The group initially wondered whether the words were simply some bizarre joke between employees. But the more they considered what the message appeared to say, the more uncomfortable they became. If the message was nothing more than an offensive joke, that would still represent an extraordinary breach of professionalism. If the food had actually been tampered with, however, the situation could have become a serious food safety matter. Clara said the group therefore asked to speak with a manager. According to her account, they were initially told that a manager was not available. Eventually, a manager became involved. That's when Clara says the waiter appeared to become extremely nervous. She claimed the young employee went white when the manager arrived and allegedly tried to throw the receipt into the trash. The family stopped him and warned that they would call police if the receipt was destroyed. The waiter reportedly apologized and explained that the message was intended as a joke between himself and the chef. The employee was reportedly only 17. The restaurant later responded to the controversy, saying the employee involved was a 17-year-old who had only been working there for approximately 2 weeks. Victor Lab described the behavior as absolutely inappropriate and said it did not represent the restaurant's values, customer service standards, or professional expectations. The restaurant also reportedly cancelled the family's bill and offered additional complimentary items. The offer was apparently declined. The incident might have ended there, with an apology and an employee being disciplined. Instead, social media transformed the dispute into an international controversy. A photograph of the receipt was posted with a negative Google review, allowing thousands of people online to see the alleged message for themselves. And then the restaurant made another move that generated even more criticism. Restaurant's TikTok response sparks fresh outrage. On August 22, Victor Lab posted a TikTok video that appeared to parody the controversy. The video portrayed an exaggeratedly demanding customer and included a reference to ordering food with spit. Rather than calming the controversy, the attempt at humor appears to have intensified it. Some viewers argued that the restaurant was simply trying to make light of an embarrassing situation and defend its employees. Others believed that joking about the possibility of food contamination was completely inappropriate. The debate quickly became divided. Some people called for the young employee to be given another chance, arguing that he was only 17 and had apparently made a serious mistake early in his employment. Others argued that restaurant employees have an enormous responsibility because customers must trust that their food is handled safely. That trust is fundamental to the restaurant business. A customer cannot see everything that happens in a kitchen. They have to rely on employees to prepare and handle food properly, even when a customer is difficult, changes an order or complains about a meal. That's why the alleged message caused such a strong reaction. No evidence the food was actually spat on. One of the most important distinctions in the story is that the receipt allegedly contained an instruction to spit in the food, but there is no established evidence that anyone actually did so. That distinction matters. The restaurant has not publicly indicated that the food was contaminated, and reports about the incident do not establish that anyone actually spat into Clara's eggs. Instead, the controversy centers on the disturbing message and the fear it understandably created. For a customer who discovers a note apparently telling kitchen staff to contaminate their meal, however, proving whether it happened may not immediately ease the anxiety. Clara said the situation left her shocked. She also claimed that the viral attention brought an unexpected second wave of problems, racist abuse and death threats directed at her online. That development has created another uncomfortable aspect of the story. A dispute that began over scrambled eggs and a receipt has now expanded into a massive social media argument involving the restaurant, its employees, its critics and supporters. The bigger problem, customer trust. The controversy highlights a much bigger issue than whether someone thought an offensive message was funny. Restaurants operate on trust. Customers hand over money and expect food to be prepared safely and professionally. Employees, meanwhile, inevitably encounter customers who complain, change orders, or make unreasonable demands. But even in those situations, there is a line that should not be crossed. A restaurant employee may privately complain about a customer. They may think an order is ridiculous. They may even laugh about an unusual request with coworkers. Writing a message instructing someone to spit in a customer's food, however, creates an entirely different impression. And when that message accidentally reaches the customer, the consequences can be enormous. The customer may begin wondering whether the food was safe, whether other diners were treated similarly, and whether the restaurant has adequate controls over what happens in its kitchen. That's why the receipt became so important. It transformed what might otherwise have been a minor disagreement about how eggs should be cooked into a question about basic food service standards. Social media made everything bigger. The incident also demonstrates how quickly a local restaurant dispute can become an international story. A photograph of a receipt posted online can be viewed by thousands or even millions of people within hours. Google reviews and TikTok videos then become part of the story, with people who were nowhere near the restaurant weighing in. The restaurant reportedly received a wave of negative reviews following the controversy. At the same time, supporters responded with positive reviews, creating another layer of online conflict. That's a familiar pattern in the age of viral controversies. One side sees the incident as evidence of unacceptable behavior. The other side sees it as an overblown incident involving a young worker who made a stupid joke. Meanwhile, the people actually involved have to deal with the consequences long after the original breakfast is over. A lesson for restaurants and diners. There are lessons on both sides. For restaurants, the episode demonstrates why employee training is so important. Young workers need to understand that jokes between employees can become serious when they concern customers, food safety, or threats to someone's health. A joke that stays in a private conversation is one thing. A written instruction that ends up on a customer's receipt is another. For diners, the story also illustrates why unusual incidents should be documented rather than immediately dismissed. Clara photographed the receipt. That image became an important part of the public discussion because it provided a record of what she said she found. At the same time, viral stories require caution. The existence of the message does not automatically prove that anyone actually contaminated the food. That's an important distinction that can easily disappear when a story spreads across social media. The final question ultimately, the most disturbing part of the story may not be the eggs at all. It is the realization that a customer can walk into a restaurant, believing they are simply ordering breakfast, and walk out wondering whether someone behind the scenes was laughing at them, or potentially putting something in their food. Clara says she simply wanted her scrambled eggs cooked a little longer. Instead, she found herself at the center of an international online controversy. The restaurant has apologized for the employee's alleged conduct, described it as inappropriate, and said the behavior did not reflect its standards. The employee was reportedly only 17 and had worked at the restaurant for about 2 weeks. But the incident's impact has extended far beyond one breakfast table. It has raised questions about restaurant culture, employee behavior, customer trust, social media accountability, and the enormous consequences that can follow from what someone thought was merely a joke. And perhaps the strangest part of the entire story is how it began. Not with a major complaint. Not with an argument. Not with an outrageous demand. It began with a customer asking for her eggs to be cooked a little more. By the time she saw the receipt, however, breakfast had become something she was unlikely to forget. This story is based on current reports from media and other outlets, covering Maria Clara's account and the restaurant's response. The allegation that food was actually contaminated remains unproven.
Adventure starts with the right gear, and it all starts at shackshop.us. From stylish women's swimsuits and premium camping tents to paddleboards, underwater drones, and dependable dinghies, we have everything you need for your next outdoor adventure. Whether you're exploring the water or relaxing on shore, gear up with quality products at unbeatable prices. Visit shackshop.us today and make every adventure